So as some people are joining in, we'll get moving to the first slide here. And the first slide is actually an interactive slide. So have you list up two words that come to mind when you think of standardization? Feel free to put anything that comes to mind. No wrong answers here. And so as these words populate, they'll show up on the screen. And if a word is put in twice, that word will get bigger. So it's kind of neat to see what everybody thinks of standardization. So it looks like we have rules and organization coming in. Consistency, SOPs, orderly. So again, if anybody has any issues with the AHA slide link, feel free to just put it in the chat. We can try to assist you there going forward. Not a big deal if you get left behind a little bit. There are other interactive questions, so just give people another minute or two here to keep adding some words to this. Kind of neat towards the end to see just how many words there are, and some of the bigger ones. Organization looks like been used multiple times in there. Alrighty, so this is being recorded. So if you do want to come back and take a snip of this word cloud for future use, you can definitely do that. It's kind of neat to see what everybody's thoughts are. So looks like we just got another participant in here. So we'll just give it another couple, like 30 seconds or so, just so they can add some other words to it. Still changing there. It looks like we have organization as the number one picked word in there. All right, as we move along here, start talking about what standardization is. So standardization is the practice of setting, communicating, following, and improving standards. It provides a baseline to measure results of improvement, and it must be applied consistently throughout the whole organization. And if the results of those the standardization practices that you implement show improvement, then the standard can change. So we got another AHA slides participant in here.
And I would like to point out if you look at your phone and you haven't touched it since the word cloud, at the top, it will say, continue with the presenter. It won't automatically change the slide for you. So if you go to the slide that the presenter is on, then it'll allow you to follow along.
Yeah, and if you have to refresh the page, feel free to just say something in the chat if it's falling behind or anything like that. So continuing with what standardization is, it's a framework of agreements, and it's all based on a consensus. So all the relevant parties must adhere. And so this enforces a level of consistency to practices or operations, whatever you're applying it to. And it gives a consistent quality of products or services. And it also involves product creation process, operation of the business, the technology in use, and how compulsory processes are carried out. So a little example for standardization, in the Air Force, there are lots of standards, obviously, military, but a big one is the fitness standards. And when it's your time for fitness testing, a lot of people kind of are not wanting to go, but those standards are all in place for a reason, and they're all meant to keep up on mission requirements, and everybody has to be able to meet those standards. So any of the mission requirements aren't left behind or caught out in the wind. So some standardization creates consistent, uniform ways of implementing tasks. And a big thing about this is it allows the workplace to uncover problems and to also make those problems easy and obvious. It's important to remember that the previous five 5S steps must be maintained to have a complete standardization process. All of these, all the 5S's have to be implemented and in action for the whole thing to really come together and work. And with that, it accelerates work productivity. And a big thing with this is it can really be shown in any form, written, physical, and behavioral, or all three really. So that's pretty important to keep in mind. So here's a little quote by Taiichi Ohno. And if you guys don't know who that is, he was one of the fathers of the TPS, the Toyota production system. And so he's real big into lean and Kaizen. And if you don't know what that means, it's really just improvement, just kind of a different word for improvement. So we'll go into some history of standardization. Standardization is always evolving. And the early forms were displayed in weights and measured. So as this really came about, having a standard form of what 1 pound is, an ounce, anything like that, and you find this stuff, you know, and mainly in your kitchen, really, for measuring cups and units of measure. It was involved in the evolved into the Industrial Revolution, and really came to place there. And it's been intertwined with the history of technology in its upcoming and growing. So a couple of predominant examples of standardization that most people know or are aware of. Eli Whitney and the invention of the cotton gin. So although it was not really made for it, it actually led to the perfection of interchangeable parts. And the US Army actually realized that it can not only be used on the cotton gin, but it can be used for a wide array of things. So they actually gave a contract for the US Army muskets after he invented that. Another big one, obviously, is the Ford manufacturing system, Henry Ford, having to do with assembly lines. And this really influenced the Toyota production system with Taiichi Ohno. And a big thing that they implemented was their just-in-time standards. It was basically to where any parts or services were delivered or completed right on time, no earlier, no later, really, just to keep the flow of assembly, mainly in their purpose for automobile manufacturing. So in talking about what standardization is, it's also important to know what standardization is not. And so it's not any approach that's not consistent. Like we said before, it has to be uniform. And you also have to make sure the definition is shared and understood by everybody. The big part there being understood. Even if the definition is shared, if people don't really understand it or grasp what that standard is, it really won't work, because it has to be shared and understood across the board. And a big thing with that is it's also not meant to be like a controlling micromanagement tactic. The reasons for these standards are not to have your upper management keep a real close eye on you to know when you're doing work and when you're not. So continuing with what is not standardization, not brought into conformity. So again, everybody being on a different page. This can kind of be a result of poor communication or listening skills. So really, if you're a supervisor, making sure your subordinates, your coworkers really all understand exactly what's going on if a new standard is implemented. And it's also not any method that doesn't streamline the process. Again, so the point of standardization is to streamline. And so that's all about being lean. It's really important that if a standard is in place that has no streamlined properties to it, that standard should not be implemented. So kind of breaking down standardization versus standard work. They're fairly intertwined, but there are differences here. Standardization is really the concept of being standard. So having laws and regulations, product standards, manuals, could be displayed or titled a variety of different things across your work, wherever you work, really. The Air Force has a lot of technical orders, but it's pretty much the same thing as product manuals or standards. And then standard work is the process of accomplishing a set task. So having like templates or specific email signatures that you always consistently send based on a customer question or a response from them. So a good example here, Citizens Bank, local bank here. So an example of their standardization is their citizens experience, which is creating an experience like no other and making it memorable, enjoyable, and having a positive experience. And then an example of their standard work that they do would be returning voicemails within 2 hours. That's really one of the main differences. Continuing, kind of on that last example, standardization gives more leeway for professional judgment. So as you see below, you do maintenance by 10 o'clock, no matter what. That's just standard work. But some standardization there is you do maintenance by 10 a.m. if possible, but if you see fit to do it earlier, go ahead. So that kind of frees things up a little bit, gives it more leeway there. So now we'll have our first quiz. You may have to refresh your phone or refresh the browser. Again, the link is at the top of the screen. You just go ahead, jump in there, you'll enter your name, and kind of to go off of last month, all of the points added will be added at the end of the series, and the winner will actually receive a prize. I'm not entirely sure what that is quite yet, but like last month, the faster you answer the question, the more points that you receive. Obviously, if your answer is correct, you'll get more points, but speed is also a point indicator here. Kind of let everybody join up there. Again, if anybody's having issues joining in, feel free to put that in the Zoom chat. Do whatever you got to do, and we'll help you get in here.
And again, the link is at the top.
Looks like we have about 10 in the AHA slides right now, so we'll just give it another second until we have a couple more players joining. See, somebody else just got in, a couple other people. There we go.
Oh yeah, we'll give it a
Boosting up the numbers here. So before you just follow along on your phone or your browser on your desktop, laptop, and that's where the question will show up. So it looks like we have 10 players right now and about 13 active in the AHA slide. So we can give it just another minute here and see if anybody else joins in. And after the meeting, feel free to provide any feedback on this AHA slides if that's something you guys enjoy, think we should do going forward. Trying to have it a little more interactive. Looks like we have 11 out of the 13 in. Give you just another minute here to see if anybody else comes in here. $12 of us, all right. Looks like a couple more people are slowly joining in the AHA slides, so we don't want to leave anybody out here.
Let me know.
Big prizes at the end, so.
If you have trouble getting in the chat.
All righty, so we'll go ahead and start this first question here. should pop up right on your phone then. Pick the option that is not standardization. Gives you about 7 more seconds left. And speed is also points. All right. Pretty good across the board there. See who's in the leaderboard. Looks like Maris, Dawn, Deb, all up top. Pretty tight though. We have a couple other questions, so that's definitely not set in stone there. All right, so why should you choose standards? Why are standards a good thing? So a big reason is customer satisfaction. You never want your customers to be surprised by, lengthy delay times, by customer service response or customer service response time that's just taking much longer than usual. Standards can help keep things in place to really have a high percentage of consistency, whether it's in your product or your service or responses. Another big thing is cost. Implementing standards can allow for cost reduction from unnecessary waste, and it shows up really in time, resources, and definitely time. And it also gives a lot of employee ease. So it eliminates a lot of guesswork, and there's a universal fit across the board. With standardization, you may be new to a company, but with standardization in place, it can make it a lot easier for training and for questions that come up. So here's a little graphic just showing kind of the right and the wrong ways, kind of a lot going on here, but for the right way, your step one is stabilize and develop standards. And then you're going to want to use those standards to teach, audit, and identify waste. So like we talked about before, time and unnecessary resources going to unnecessary places that you may not have been able to identify before. Then you move on to step 3, which is to improve and develop through problem solving and eliminating waste by identifying those the reference to standards. And so if you look at it on the wrong end of the spectrum, if you don't invest into stabilizing and developing good standards to start improving without them, there will be no reference to identify that waste. You will really only be able to improve by hit and miss. And your improvement efforts will often be patchy and short-term and unsustainable. And so an example that I kind of like to use for standardization is with big like fast food restaurants or nationwide companies, they usually have standards across the board, no matter if you're a manager in La Crosse or a manager in San Diego. So if you manage a store or a restaurant here in La Crosse and you have to fly out to San Diego to manage their store or restaurant the next day, with standards in place, it's made so easy to do that. So there really aren't a whole lot of unknowns other than, I guess, the customers walking in the door. But having similar processes and standards across the board can eliminate a lot of questions. And so we have another quiz here, so kind of get ready. Standardization is?
And pick 2. There's 2 correct answers.
This one will have a little bit of extra time here, kind of a lengthy question. See some answers flying in here real quick. 6 out of the 14 have answered. 8, 9, 10. About 5 seconds left for the remainder of the answers to come in. All right, so good answers across the board there. All right, some changes to the leaderboard.
Nice.
Dawn hopping up front with Deb, followed by John. All righty. A couple more questions here still, so hang in there, and It's not over yet. And so here we'll show just a quick video about a simple standard that can honestly be life-saving. And as we watch this video, think of some standards that you're glad exist, because after this video, we'll have another interactive for you to enter that standard in so it can show up on screen for everybody else to see. So we'll just view this video here. And if you're not able to hear it, toss it up in the chat. I'm hoping everybody can hear this video. So if you're not able to hear it, just let us know right away. All right, so you're not able to hear. Let's see if it's something in my screen sharing here. Not sure if anybody knows right off the top of their head.
Yeah.
Should be able to let us know here if you can't hear it, we'll rewind it.
Yeah, we can hear. No, there we go.
Now, a problem that I'm finding is a lot of guys working in the asbestos removal industry are wearing respirators and they've got a lot of facial hair. Now, there's a big problem with this because it does not seal adequately on the face. Today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be conducting a couple of facial fit tests on one of our students for our asbestos courses. Dan, say hi to the camera, mate. So the first mask we're going to be conducting the fit test with is the Sunstrom SR100, yeah? This mask is very common in the non-friable asbestos removal industry and is a great mask. The second mask, it's very common for friable asbestos removal, it's the SR200. This mask here, it seals very well on people's faces, so we're going to see how that goes on Dan's face with a full beard. So we're going to be doing breathing exercises with both masks, with and without the beard. First up, Dan, with the beard. First one is normal breathing. Really simply, just put your head from side to side. What I get you to do then is just head up and down. The last test is bending over. So Dan, to pass this test, you've got to have a score of at least 500. For the Sunstrom SR100, you scored 44, which is a very low result. For the SR200, you scored 62, which is also a very, very low result, mate. So Dan, the reason I believe you failed is simply because of the beard. So what are you to do, mate? If you could please go have a shave, that'd be excellent, mate. Thanks. Excellent. So Dan, you basically passed with flying colours with the Sunstrom SR100. You got a score of 44 with the beard, and then without the beard, you got a score of 27,500, which is an extremely high pass. Yeah. With the SR200, with the beard, Dan, you scored 62, right? And then without the beard, you scored 35,500, which is an extremely high score. So mate, that's all good. That basically proves to you that having a beard really does affect the seal. Yep. So you can basically see with a beard, it really does affect that seal on the respirator, and without a beard, it seals 100% correctly in your face. So always make sure with your respirators, you're 100% clean shaven. Nice.
Alrighty, so kind of a quick goofy video there. Obviously not everybody has to go through something like that or to that extent for their daily jobs, but it is out there, and it is a pretty good representation of how standards can sometimes, in this case, be life-saving. So we'll have you do another interactive, and this is where you just type the first standardization practice that comes to mind after watching this video. Should be able to let you in there now. I think everything was paused. All right, so driving laws, a lot of speed limit, driving laws, continuous improvement, improved performance. Let a couple more people answer there. We got 6 of them. All right, traffic laws, driving laws, bunch of those ones. Those are definitely a good thing to have. All right, so moving on, we'll kind of tie it in here, standardization in relation to lean. So standardization being the fourth step in the 5S system. And this includes knowing the outcome for the customer. So what really matters to the customer? What are they looking for? Also includes knowing the sequence of tasks. So being able to move confidently from one task to the next without wasted resources or time. And the right and wrong way for doing every task. So having and knowing clear criteria to decide whether the task is being done right or wrong. Some more tying it into lean includes knowing the environment on which to do the job, having the right tools, the correct organization, and the proper information to get the job done right. Also knowing who to call in case of doubt. So if situations or which situations should not be faced on one's own, and who to call for a second opinion if one is needed. Also includes knowing how to make suggestions for improvement to happen. Where or whom does one go with a better idea, and how can you improve upon that? And so that really comes into the next slide here. So if you were a lower tier employee hourly and the majority of the people you work are salary, or if you're an intern, how do you really get upper management to buy into a potential standard or an idea that you have to standardize? So a big thing is really having a lot of proof. So showing proof that the potential of this new standard can work and being able to demonstrate that. Sometimes, depending on what it is, providing a time or a dollar value that can be saved can really trigger something in your management's mind that may get them to buy in. But you have to be able to set clear direction. You have to be clear, and you have to be able to effectively communicate and also listen in the process. So don't be too rigid or too flexible. They may take your idea, they may take parts of your idea, but the point is to standardize. So we've got another question here to hop back on your phone. True or false? Standardize is step 2 in the 5S system. It's like we're jumping up 10 answers in, 10 of 13. About 10 more seconds to answer if you have not already. Again, the link is at the top. See, we do have one answer over here in the Zoom chat, false, and that is
you're
correct.
right. Yep. In the chat.
All right, back to the leaderboard here. Dawn staying on top. John, Bobby, Tim, and Larissa there in 5th, coming up on the leaderboard. All right, another question for you. True or false, standardization can be demonstrated in written, physical, and or behavioral form. True or false? Another about 25 seconds to get your answers in. You have to go ahead and throw it up in the Zoom chat if you're not able to get in on the AHA slides there. So we have another answer here in the Zoom chat. Got about 10 answers in on the AHA slides, about 5 seconds left on that. All righty.
And you are right in the chat.
Move down to the leaderboard here. Dawn sitting in 1st place. And that was the last question. So Dawn, congratulations on the win there with 344 points.
And the top 6.
Then we followed by John, Tim, and Larissa, with Robin tied in 4th there. All righty, good job everybody on the questions there. We appreciate your responses. So kind of to wrap up here, again, like I said in the beginning, this is just part 1 of a 3-part mini-series that we're doing here, kind of showing that standardization is really just the umbrella for standard work and leader standard work, both of which we'll be going over in the following 2 parts of this series. So with that being said, if you have any questions for anybody, go ahead, put it in the Zoom chat over here, do what we can to answer all of those.
And thank you all for
Yeah,
participating.
we appreciate everybody participating. Again, let us know what you thought of the AHA slides. It should be something we should be using going forward if you guys like the interactive bit to it there. But yeah, thanks again. Thanks for all the new faces that are here this month, and hope to see everybody again.
I've seen anything come through the getting a little feedback there. I'll chat mine in.
All right, it looks like no questions yet. Again, if anybody has a question, feel free to put it in the Zoom chat there. Any question you've got, really anything, somebody will be able to answer it for you, or we'll get back to you if we don't know the answer. Looks like Dawn said AHA slides were awesome. Like the interactive, that's good. Glad you guys are liking the interactive bit that is added to it. Definitely seems like it's something to keep in there. Tim Dre saying the same thing. AHA slides were great. Yeah, thank you guys for the feedback there. All right, so here in the military, what percentage of your responsibilities have standardization? Well, a lot of it really. We have all sorts of standards, the fitness standards, like I mentioned, facial standards, like you guys saw in the video. Anytime we're on duty, we have to have clean shaven face for pretty much the same reason. We have gas masks and stuff like that has to fit correctly. And a lot of our job is dictated by standards and standard work really too. We have a lot of product guidelines and a lot of technical orders that really break down and tell you how to do your job. And if a specific one doesn't have the right stuff that you're needing, there's likely something else that will tell you what to do. So there's very little gray area in the middle there. Any other questions can keep coming through. Looks like we have a little bit of time left here.
Clear direction equals better, proper work. I agree. At school, sometimes professors aren't that clear, especially being online. And that does not make projects or homework very easy. So I agree.
Yeah, lots of this can be applied really across the board. It doesn't have to just be work, be school. In your personal life, a lot of standardization in your personal life can really help out. Last call for any questions. If anybody's got any, feel free to unmute yourself too if you have to answer or ask your question, or just type it in the chat there.
Thank you. That's so sweet. Thank you to everyone who came.
Yeah, big thanks again. Hope everybody enjoyed it, and looking forward to seeing you for part 2 of the 3-part mini series.